This segment is under the topic of Rise to Lead, partnered by Nestle. Nestle leads the way in food, drink, and nutrition, enhancing lives and building a healthier future for all. With over 100 years of expertise, Nestle touches millions of lives daily, shaping a better world for individuals, communities, and the planet. And now please cheer for the first team to present the paper under the topic of Rise to Lead, titled E.N.D.E.A.R, Endures, Alternate Leadership Paradigm.
Good morning, everyone. This is Siddharth and Nidhi from Third Eye. We're actually going to talk about the human aspect of our business, which is grooming for leadership, the Gen Z. A lot has been spoken about the convergence between HI and AI. You started it, Amitabh, and today I'm going to also take forward the conversation between Amitabh, Amitji, and Shefali on how we as the agency is also fostering a culture of rise and shine amongst the future generation of leaders. I think when we look at grooming for leadership, one of the key things that we also found ourselves borrowing from is it's a little bit like parenting and teaching, right? Because you also have to adapt philosophies, styles, points of view to the generation in terms of what is relevant to them, what they value. I think when we also look at Gen Z, a lot of the things that we've heard as researchers who research them as well as people who work with them is fluidity over permanence, jobs are increasingly becoming gigs, commitment phobia. How then do we groom them for leadership, which in its essence is about structure and long-term? That really was something that we found ourselves also reflecting upon. And therefore, when you look at Gen Z from a leadership point of view, we found ourselves actually questioning some very fundamental paradigms. In leadership, of course, structure is important. Reporting relationships continue to hold true. Outcomes, work, business as usual continues to hold true. However, when it comes to Gen Z, we found that leadership needs to be inspirational versus instructional. It needs to be about authenticity and connection versus about authority. It needs to be much more inclusive. Imagine coming to work in a place where your voice is not just heard, but it's valued. You're given growth, not just from a career point of view, but also growth to pursue your passions and hobbies, where you build relationships on authenticity, on connections. And that's really what our leadership approach or grooming for leadership approach really was. We were inspired by our neighbors, where happiness and GDP go hand in hand. And Amitabh, I think you also spoke about the DNA in your organization, which is people and profit going together. And that really is, I mean, we are an industry where people are our biggest assets. And therefore, investing in them, grooming them with authenticity is something that E.N.D.E.A.R is about. And before we get into E.N.D.E.A.R, I also want to spend some time in talking about what E.N.D.E.A.R is not. E.N.D.E.A.R is not a checkbox of acronyms that you cross off at the end of the day. E.N.D.E.A.R is not to be interpreted as an initiative, it's a philosophy. E.N.D.E.A.R is also not something that treats people as cogs in a wheel. It's actually about a more equal system of leadership. It's actually a more people-oriented system of leadership and far more relational. To throw a little more light on what E.N.D.E.A.R is, over to Nidhi.
Okay, let me break down what E.N.D.E.A.R is. It's actually an acronym that captures the fundamentals of what this philosophy is all about. E is equality over hierarchy, where voices of team members, irrespective of their designation or title or their tenure, are actually equally valued, thereby promoting collaboration and an environment where even reverse guidance is possible. N stands for nurture growth, where holistic growth is encouraged, supporting both professional endeavors as well as personal interests, thereby creating well-rounded leaders. D stands for demonstrate, where leaders are actually expected to lead by example, showing humility and openness to feedback, thereby fostering mutual respect. E stands for empowered work environment, where mistakes are seen as learning opportunities, fostering innovation and resilience amongst Gen Z. A stands for authenticity, where the workplace embraces genuine self-expression and supported by initiatives like an onboarded therapist for employee emotional well-being. And R stands for relational versus transactional interactions, where there is a focus on building strong and meaningful relationships towards creating a sense of community versus just task management. Some examples of how this plays out on a daily basis at Third Eye are, so we have this initiative called a passion project leave, which actually empowers employees to pursue their personal interests without compromising on their professional goals. So the program allows employees to avail of an additional 1 month of leave, during which they can either travel for inspiration or engage in creative pursuits or explore new skills. We actually encourage their passions and encourage them to actually share their experiences with the larger team. Another example. So recently, in a team meeting, a junior member of the team actually gave some very constructive feedback to a senior member who had displayed her views slightly aggressively. Instead of being defensive, the senior leader actually appreciated the feedback and immediately adjusted her behavior right in that moment itself.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, another recent example that comes to mind is, and we know this, no other phrase has been spoken about in regard to this generation as work than work-life balance. We've been hearing words like mental health at work, work-life balance, burnout, etc. And it's really important. It is a priority area for Gen Z. What we did was we recognized that it is something that we at an industry level are also something that requires taking stock of. And therefore, we've put together a task force that comprises not just senior members, but also Gen Z members of the team. This task force actually meets regularly, takes stock of systems, work, continuously brainstorms with senior leadership and the steering committee to come up with solves, because what this does is gives Gen Z ownership of solutioning for problems that are important to them. It also gives them an opportunity to come back and teach us ways in which we can make work more joyful, more meaningful, without compromising on excellence.
Yeah, so as you can see, adopting the E.N.D.E.A.R framework has really aligned our leadership practices with the values of Gen Z. And we see that the values that are close to them, which is inclusivity, purpose, and authenticity, are not just buzzwords, but the lived experiences at Third Eye. The impact of E.N.D.E.A.R is undeniable. While traditional organizations struggle with low engagement and high turnover, our attrition rate has dipped to just around 3% in the last year. So our Gen Z employees are not just staying longer, they're actually stepping into leadership roles with much greater confidence and enthusiasm. They're not just surviving, they're actually thriving, they're leading with purpose, and they're driving our organization forward in ways that traditional leadership models simply cannot replicate. In closing, I want to leave you with this thought. The future of leadership is here, and it's not about embracing outdated models. It's embracing a new paradigm that values people just as much as profit, relationships over transactions, and authenticity over authority. The E.N.D.E.A.R framework is not just a strategy. Like Siddharth said earlier, it's a philosophy that really transforms how we lead and ultimately how we succeed. Thank you.
Hi. So we have one question here. We spoke about Gen Zs as employees, but how about Gen Zs as leaders? Wouldn't they bring in their own set of ideas and values which may be inherently different from the organizational practices?
That's actually quite true, and that's the reason why it forces organizations to rethink what leadership is about. I think it's actually not this or that. We don't see it as either or. It is, at the end of the day, a symbiotic relationship between the organization and the individual working in it. It's great if they're able to bring their values into the organization as leaders. In fact, that's the hope and the goal, because that then tells you that the organization is also adaptable, it is moving ahead with times. And from an organization standpoint, it's in our interest as organizations and leaders to ensure that that particular osmosis of value systems is not just given a space, but actually encouraged to thrive. In fact, I don't see it as a problem. I actually see it as a wonderful thing, and more people should be doing it.
Thank you. There's another one. In a world increasingly driven by AI and automation, how do you see the E.N.D.E.A.R leadership model maintaining relevance in the coming years?
Okay. I think, and I again borrow quite shamelessly from what Amitabh said in the morning, there is the rise part of it, and there is the shine part of it. AI, automation, tools, skills, increasingly are going to become par for the course. These are skills that are going to become commoditized, almost fungible. And therefore, E.N.D.E.A.R becomes even more relevant, because that then ensures that the human aspect of what we do also moves ahead with time. While we will be very quick to adapt tools in a new age scenario, I think we should also remember that the people who are going to be running these companies with those tools, for clients who are going to use those tools, also need to adapt. And that generation is not, pardon me, you or me, but it's actually the younger generation here. And therefore, E.N.D.E.A.R is going to become even more relevant as automation and AI takes over.
Yeah, there's one which is extremely relevant. With the recent outcry and corporate soul searching following the tragic passing of a corporate employee very recently, themes like corporate empathy and work-life balance are being re-examined. In light of this, is there a POV that you have to present on how the framework you presented addresses these concerns?
Yeah, so the recent tragic incident, of course, is something that we all need to take stock about and reflect and do some soul searching. That notwithstanding, like I mentioned in the presentation as well, words like work-life balance, mental health at work, burnout, work culture, these are very, very key values to Gen Z. We understood that, we appreciate it, and we've also therefore formed a task force of Gen Z to actually bring about this change. Because what it does, like I said, gives them autonomy to design solutions that are relevant to them for problems which are relevant to them. And the hope is also, like Nidhi said, teach us a thing or two about making the workplace a slightly more joyful, happier, safer place to work. It's really their future and free to design the way they want to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.